Microsoft Excel, you wonder? No. I always prefer Google when I can. However, sometimes Google isn't safe enough. For example, when you want to prepare sheets for your yearly grade for your students, and that includes their ID numbers, which is sensitive information, and you're not supposed to be working on them in the cloud, which is why I'm going to show you how to do it in Microsoft Excel. Here we go. So basically, I'm going to show you how to do something that looks like the spreadsheet that you see behind me. It's going to have their names, it's going to have their ID numbers, it's going to have a group number, because now we're going to be dividing our students up into groups and not teaching them in the normal way necessarily that we usually do. It's going to have the color according to the color coding that we recommended that you do in order to map out your students' functioning, especially virtual functioning, but functioning during this period leading up to the exam. It's going to have the module, because the grades that you're going to put in a sheet for one module are not going to be the same grades that you're putting into a sheet if that same student is doing another module in the same time. So it's important to have the module written there. It's important to write the testing adaptations, the Hatamot, so that you can know at a glance what Hatamot this kid needs when your school secretary asks you for them. It has a column that enables you to fill out what each specific student needs to work on in order to improve themselves for this specific exam. If it's in Module E, then you're going to write down if they need extra practice in listening or more emphasis on the reading, the different skills that are needed for the different levels. And then you're going to have all of the grades lined up together, and I'm going to show you how to calculate them. There's one part of this that's a little bit more work to calculate it, but once you get that down, you just copy paste and all the rest is done for you. So let's go. I'm going to start out by opening up a new sheet. Depending on the menu that you click on, Home, Insert, Page Layout, your toolbar is going to look different. So when it's on Home, it will not look the same as when it's on Insert, Page Layout, Formulas, Data, Review, View. In order to make this left-right oriented, I have to be on Page Layout, and I'm going to switch the orientation. So now you see the A's on the left side, and it's going to go in the right direction. I want to leave some rows above, even though I could add them afterwards, but since I already know what I'm aiming for, I'm going to start on the 5th row. So here we are on row 5, and I want to number them. Instead of writing in all of the numbers, I just grab it and pull it down and click on Fill Series. So now I have from 1 to 60. I certainly don't need that much. I can delete them later. The next row is going to be for my student ID numbers. And I put the title at the top. And the column after that is going to be for the student names. Now the ID numbers are sensitive. If you write the wrong number, then you're really in trouble. So I download the files from Mashov and I save it and I copy paste it from that Excel sheet that I've downloaded from the Mashov, so that I know that there's not going to be any mistakes in the ID numbers. What I'm going to do now is going to copy paste it from the Excel sheet that I showed you at the beginning, which is basically the same thing I do with the sheet that I download from Mashov. Now as you can see, this column is wide enough for the ID numbers, but their names needed to be a little bit wider. You just pull it, and that's no problem. Next column that I'm going to have, I want it to be the group number. So I'm going to write up here group number. And then color, which is, again, the way I'm going to be mapping my students out so that I can divide them more easily into groups or decide who needs what kind of exercises. Module, Hatamot, and what the student needs. As we said, what student needs could be reading comprehension, It could be reading comprehension and listening. Let's say we're doing Module E here. I'm going to copy this, Control C or copy, and just pull it down, because all of this class are Module E, and paste. And Hatamot, well, this kid needs to be read to, and so on. I'm not going to fill those in now. From column I, I'm going to start working on the grades, and that's the part that you have to calculate, and that's the part where spreadsheets make it just so much easier. So I'm going to put the titles in. The first one is Matkonet 1, and then Matkonet 2, quizzes, classwork, studentalism. I know it doesn't exist, but it's Talmidaut, and I'm calling it studentalism because I can. And tests and final grade. Now, how much each of these is worth, we can't tell you. Judy can't tell you. This is a decision that comes from your English department together, from your school, the administrators. So we have 20% for each matkonet. Quizzes are worth 10%. Classwork is worth 20%. Let's say I'm just doing this sort of making it up as I go here, but really you have to use the percentages that you get from school. Tests are 20%, and then the final grade. The reason why I write these different percentages up here is just to make sure that it works out to be 100. So when I want to calculate the grade, I use the top row for my test. So I'm going to put 100 in all of these cells, because let's say this kid got 100 on all of them, and then I'm going to calculate the final grade. Everything that is in column I will have the weight of 20%. Everything that is in column J will have the weight of 20%. Column K will have the weight of 10%, L 20%, M 10%, and N 10%. I'm going to click on the cell that is going to be where my final calculation is, and I click on Auto Sum. Now it is colored all of the cells that I want to do. It figured out that's what I want, but if it didn't, if you want to take part of the cells, if it doesn't get them properly, you just color them like I did. So you have sum I1, because this is column I, row 1, to N1. I'm going to click on I. I is going to have the weight of 20%, so I'm doing I asterisk, which means times 0.2, plus, clicking on J, asterisk, which means times 0.2 plus, K asterisk 0.1, because that's 10%, plus L times 0.2 plus M times 0.1 plus N times 0.2 equals. Now it works out to 100, which means I got the calculation right. From this point on, I have my calculation in here, and all I have to do will be to copy it. So let's put some grades in and see how that works. So these are the grades that I typed in by hand for the first matkonet, the second matkonet. And again, if you can't see it, just pull it aside. These numbers up here are my percentages, and those are what helped me remember what percentages each column was when I was doing the calculation. I have all of these grades in here now, and now I'm going to go over to where my calculation is. And here in the window, you can see that my calculation is all set out there. And what I'm going to do now is the magic. You do copy. And then I put it here in the cell That's going to be the final grade, and I drag it down to the end, and I right click and I do paste, or I could do Control V. And here we have all of the final grades for all of our students that are here in this sheet. A couple of last things that I want to show you to make your lives easier with these really big jam-packed spreadsheets. So first of all, in order to be able to see all of the grades and not lose sight of the headings, I'm going to make the headings to have a shade in them. So these headings I'm going to do gray. You don't want anything that's too dark. And these headings, the ones so that they stand out for the yearly grades, I'll make these green. And I'm going to stand at the first row and go to View, Freeze Panes, and now I can scroll through, but you can easily see the grades of the students as you scroll up. Another thing is hiding columns. If I want the information of the student's name and ID number and then the final grade, I'm going to grab all of the columns that I do not want to see right now. I'm not going to delete them. I right click and click on Hide. And now we have all of their names next to their final grades. Another thing, I'm going to undo this. Another thing that makes it a little bit easier to read these spreadsheets is if you go to Home, you format the cells. So I want all borders, then I can see it much more clearly. Okay, so I hope this helps you keep track. It's really important to have these forms ready so that you have all of the information at your fingertips when you need them, and you don't have to start scrambling and putting things together. Take advantage of the time now. Put it together. You can add to it as it goes and change the calculations. It's digital. It can always be adjusted. But it is Excel, so do not forget to save. I'm terrible at that because I'm used to Google. So I'm going to say Save As. I'm going to put in my Corona file. And I really should have done this at the beginning. Shh, don't tell me. That's all. See you in our sessions. Bye.